Hello everyone, so today I am here to finally wrap up all of the books that I've read since I went on hiatus. So if you missed it, or if this is the first video you're watching of mine, I went on hiatus since the end of July, so I have not wrapped up anything since I read since July. I will say it's only 23 books, which, yeah, that's a lot of books for sure, but considering I used to do wrap-ups of 20 to 30 books every single month in previous years, it's not that much. But yeah, I went on a hiatus to just give myself some time. I started a new job, and I also wasn't having like a great relationship with reading, if I'm completely honest. I felt like I was very much only reading to be able to make videos, and that's just a really crappy feeling to have, especially because I love reading. Reading is my favorite hobby. It's something that I absolutely love doing, so feeling like I was just reading to read, just to be able to make content, was just a shitty feeling, and my mental health just wasn't great. So that's why I went on hiatus. I've already talked about it, and obviously I'm back at least for the month of October. I'm not totally sure about what I'll be doing in November and December. I was honestly really enjoying kind of taking some time off, but I'm also really excited for spooky season. But whatever. Yeah, so today I'm here to wrap up all of those books that I didn't talk about on my hiatus. So this is July, August, and September. So this is going to be my summer wrap up, I guess. So yeah, we're going to talk about all of the 23 books I've read since I went on that hiatus. I do apologize because some of these books I definitely don't super remember what I have to say about them, or even like star ratings and stuff. A lot of books, again, I've been in quite a reading slump this entire year, and I felt like I was reading a lot of like 3-star books, even on my hiatus. So, yeah, I apologize if I don't have a ton to say on each book, but I will try. Alright, so the first book that I finished back in July was Love and Other Thought Experiments by Sophie Ward. This is a book that I picked up because I saw Max from Well Done Books on Instagram. He's on Instagram. Read this, and he really loved it, and he kept saying how bizarre it was, and the description of it is so bizarre for sure. It's basically about 2 women who are married, and one of them, when she like goes to bed, she feels that an ant has crawled inside of her eye and is now living behind her eye. And it's kind of like a really big analogy metaphor for their relationship and kind of understanding another person in a relationship. I end up really enjoying the commentary on that portion of like relationships and how relationships are and what it means to sacrifice something for another person, how much of yourself should you sacrifice for another person, stuff like that. I just didn't love the execution of this book. To be completely honest, I thought it was going to be a lot weirder, but that weird ant crawling behind the eye thing happens in literally the first like 10 pages, and then not super a lot happens besides that conversation about relationships happens after that. So I really loved the concept behind this. I didn't love the execution. So I give this like, I think a 3.5 out of 5 stars. But then I read one of my absolute favorite books of the entire year, and that was Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. To be completely honest, this got bumped up on my TBR because it has a Monsta X reference. It's on page 24, and she talks about Monsta X. And yes, I was the person who asked the author who her biases, she biases Shanken. But yeah, this is about a woman who has just finished her PhD, and the job that she felt was lined up for her didn't end up working out. So she doesn't really know what she's doing with her life. She and her friends decide to go to Las Vegas to celebrate her finishing her PhD and kind of get her out of this funk that she's in. And while they are in Las Vegas, she ends up getting married to another woman who she has no idea who she is. And when she wakes up, the woman is gone, and she is trying to figure out who she is, who this woman is that she married. And when she does, she ends up kind of running away from her problems and going to live with her new wife in New York City. This book was very personal. This is one of those books that I felt like I kept saying that if I handed this to someone, it would almost be like handing them my own story. I don't know Morgan Rogers very well at all, or what her experience is, but she was inside of my brain while she was writing this book. I just identified so much with the main character, her relationship with her parents, her relationship with herself and academia, and just so much of this book I was almost crying at because I felt so seen, but also it was just like one of those things that it was so overwhelming to be reading about another person who was experiencing the same things I have experienced, I guess, which, again, I'm a white girl. I'm like a rich white girl. I've seen myself in plenty of things, but it was very overwhelming to see such a specific mindset portrayed in a book. So yeah, this was automatic 5-star, absolutely one of my favorite books of the year. And if you want to just read a little piece of my brain, pick this one up. It's so good. Also, the prose in this, so beautiful. I read it on ebook, and I wish I had read it physically because I wish I could have annotated it. It is so beautifully written, so highly recommend. And then I immediately, when it came out, read The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. This is the 4th book in the Truly Devious series. This is one of my favorite series. It is the only YA series I still keep up with. Maureen Johnson, I just love her books. I love her writing. I love her characters. And this was kind of a spin-off from the original trilogy. The trilogy up there is like a whole story, and then this by itself is a whole story. We follow Stevie and the crew, who they all get to go and be counselors at a summer camp together. And I thought that this was a lot of fun. I don't think it was nearly as strong as the other books. The mystery was very, very simple because it was a standalone. But mostly I'm here for the characters, so I still really enjoyed it, and I give it a 4-star. If you enjoyed if you really enjoyed Truly Devious, I'm not saying like a 4 or 3-star, I'm saying like a 5-star series for you, pick this book up. Otherwise, you could probably skip this. Okay, I do own this book physically, but it is under such a large stack of books and I'm not going to get it out. I read Darling by Kay Ancrum. If you guys didn't know, my academic position focus is Peter Pan, and Peter Pan and adaptation. So I read all of the Peter Pan adaptations that come out. This was the newest one by Kay Ancrum. I've been anticipating this book for probably a 1.5 to 2 years, like since it was announced. It was awful. I'm sorry. It was so bad. I feel so bad because, again, Peter Pan is my focus, so I have to just read everything that is a Peter Pan adaptation, but all of them are YA, and the YA is really getting to me. This was so painfully YA, it was ridiculous. I couldn't handle it. Yeah, so this one follows Wendy, who is a teenager. She just moved to a new house, and one night this man breaks into her house and she goes, "Hey, want to come to a party?" And she just goes, "Yeah." So yeah, this was stupid. It was really stupid. The characters were stupid. The plot was stupid. Everything about it was stupid. The writing wasn't very good. I kept describing this as, I don't read fan fiction personally. I'm just not super comfortable with that. But I always see the memes about K-pop fan fiction and like the joking tweets like imitating fan fiction. So I kind of get the meme that this reminded me of those memes about K-pop fan fiction. That like every single party in K-pop fan fiction is hosted by Jackson Wang, and like every single K-pop idol ever is there, and like you have to describe exactly what everyone is wearing and who's interacting with who and all of that kind of stuff. That's what this book was a Jackson Wang K-pop fanfiction party. That's my best description of it. But yeah, 2 stars. Just because nothing was blatantly wrong with it, nothing was bad about this book. It was just not a good book. Oh, and then I read Olive. This one I read on audiobook or ebook, I think. This one, I genuinely can't even think of what to say about it. I think I gave it a 3 stars. Nothing was wrong with it. It was well written. I think this book was revolutionary when it first came out in the UK, like 2 years ago, a 1.5 to 2 years ago, because it follows a woman who doesn't want children, living in a world that is very much like, you are a woman, you must have baby. And I think that this would have hit a lot harder if I hadn't like been on like childless TikTok for the last like year. And like I read so much feminist literature about like being childless and like not feeling like you have to have a baby, and like making that decision for yourself rather than for society or other people, because it's always been something I've struggled with, is deciding about whether to have a kid or not. So this book was just like, it was nothing special to me personally because I read so much about it. I just thought it was kind of boring. I thought the characters were very over the top and very archetypes more than actual characters. So this one was fine. I gave it like 3 stars. Nothing was wrong with it, but it just wasn't great. And then I read Hench. This was one that I was so excited about because I was like, superheroes and disability. Oh, like fuck me up. I was so excited about this book and it just ended up falling kind of flat. I honestly just got really bored with it. It was way too long. But yeah, basically this follows a world where there are people with superpowers and, you know, there are agencies where you go to, like, be a sidekick or work for a superhero that needs your help in, like, your specific superpower might help, and some people have, like, really, really basic superpowers that it's, like, you know, control someone's emotions or something like that, and then other people have real superpowers, like super strength and flying and stuff. And we follow a girl who basically, she actually works for the villains. She works for the villain sides of things, and she ends up getting really, really hurt because of a superhero. And because of this, it starts a whole like project for her of researching superheroes and how much life they destroy and how many lives they take versus how many they save. Which is such an interesting topic. Again, it's one of those things that every time I watch a superhero movie, I'm just like, wow, that is $1 million in cars and streets that you just destroyed punching someone into the road. Or wow, you just killed everyone in this building just fighting this one person. Like, is it worth it? So it was a really interesting topic to me personally. It got really boring, to be completely honest. Like, the first 30-40% was so good, and then it just got really boring. It kind of fell off for me, so I ended up giving it a 3-star. I had a lot of 3 stars, unfortunately. Next up, we had one of my most anticipated books of the year, and that was Allswell by Mona Awad. This is the author of Bunny, which, if you guys know, I love Bunny so much. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and this was her next book. And I was so excited about it, because obviously, Bunny. I wanted more Bunny. This is very, very different. Like, if you liked Bunny, I would still say try it, but this is a very, very different story. Basically, we follow a woman who is a theater director, and she deals with chronic pain. There's a lot of amazing commentary about chronic pain, and, like, that whole, like, you know, people constantly telling you it's in your head, there's nothing wrong with you, like, why are you being so dramatic, da 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 da. And she is a theater director at a college, and basically they start putting on Allswell that Ends Well. And it's a lot of drama, with her and this theater crew, but also her and her internal monologue, and basically this like weird thing starts happening where she starts giving her chronic pain to someone else, and it's fascinating. I give this a 4-star. It wasn't as weird and like fucky as I'd hoped it would be from the author of Bunny, but I did end up really enjoying it. It was just not as like mind-boggling as Bunny, but a solid 4-star. Next up, I read a book that my fiance got me while he was out on vacation, and I appreciated it so much, and that is Bestiary by K. Ming Chong. Just reading the back of this book, it sounds like my perfect book, which is, I was so proud of him for finding such an amazing book, because basically this is queer, about Chinese women and like queer women and magical realism and, you know, tiger spirits and just so many buzzwords for me. I ended up hating this. I hated this so much. It was so bad. And we joke about it that I have always said that I prefer to give a book 1 or 5-star over 3 stars. So I hoped that this would be a 1 or a 5-star. I gave it like a 1.5. It was really bad. I hated it. Maybe it was because I also had such high expectations because it sounded so perfect. It was so, like, disgusting. I don't know how else to say it. How did other people describe this? Gorgeous and gorgeously grotesque. It's very grotesque. It's disgusting. This book talks about shit and piss so much. Like, listen, I'm a very, like, sex positive person. I don't mind when people, like, talk about the human body. I love anatomy. I feel like we should talk more about that. But, and again, like, let's talk about piss and poop. Like, I don't mind that. But It was every other sentence. I couldn't handle it. It was so much. It felt like a 9-year-old boy sat down to write a book. It was just like, what's my two favorite? Just poop and piss and sex. And that was all that happened in this book. I couldn't even tell you what the story was because all we talked about was poop. I couldn't handle it. So I'm sure this has an audience somewhere. It just wasn't me. Next up is a book that I absolutely loved, at least. This I've talked about in a previous currently reading video because I wanted to give it a shout out because it is kind of tied for my #1 book of the year right now, and that is Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Sugimura. Guys, this book is so good. I know I feel like a lot of people feel like it's a little hyped up. A lot of people are giving it very high praise, but I'm one of them. It is so good. So basically this book follows a group of school children who all stop going to school, and they find that there is a magical land in their mirrors. So that when they go through this mirror, they're in this like magical like mansion castle. And while they're there, they are told that they're looking for a key to open a door, and if they open this door into this room, then they get to make a wish. And there's a lot of like different things that kind of go along with this. Like if no one makes a wish, then they all get to keep their memories of this place and get to just like continue on with their lives because the castle closes after 1 year. So they either have to make a wish and like get one person's wish gets to come true, or the castle closes but they all get to keep their memories. And it's basically about these kids and their stories and their trauma, and then also becoming friends. It was so beautiful. The ending was so fucking beautiful. I read this so fast in the middle of a reading slump. I could not stop thinking about this book. It was so perfect. I loved every single second of it. Some people I feel like think it's a little dry, but that's just Japanese literature. I feel like it's always a little bit dry, but I loved this so much. I loved every kid. I loved the story, the meaning behind it. As someone who was bullied when I was in school, I just was able to relate to this so much, and the feelings that these kids were going through. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it so much. 5 stars. Cannot recommend enough. And then I listened to an audiobook of The Mermaid in Jeju. I'm not gonna lie, I can't even remember what this book was. I remember about a girl like going up a mountain to deliver something. And that's literally all I remember about this book. I think I gave it 3 stars. I apologize. I don't remember this book at all. Okay, I also own these books physically, but they're stacked under here. But I read all 3 volumes of Heartstopper. I have read the first volume before, so that one was a reread for me, but I just binged through all of the Heartstoppers, and it was wonderful. Highly recommend if you just want some gushy, cute, adorable queer boys being queer, and also other queer characters being queer and just adorable in high school. I cannot recommend Heartstopper enough. I know everyone talks about these, but they're really, truly just happiness in a little book binding. Basically, these follow a young boy who is in high school, and he becomes friends with like the school superstar jock, and he ends up having a crush on him, and it's about their relationship and then their friendship, and then lots of stuff about queerness and coming out of the closet and stuff like that. Bullying. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. Next up, I read Game Changer by Neil Shusterman. Everyone read Scythe because everyone was like sponsored by the publisher or whatever, and then no one read any other of his books, but whatever. I love Neil Shusterman. I've been reading him since I was in like middle school. Game Changer is his most recent book, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. Basically, this follows a boy who he's a football player in high school, and one day when he is just on the field, he gets hit, or he hits someone really hard, but it also kind of like knocks him a little bit. And his world changes slightly. Rather than the red lights, like stoplights being red or like stop signs being red, they're all blue. And then every time he plays football and gets hit, the world keeps changing very, very slightly. And it goes places that I was not expecting for a YA book, and I was so happy Neil Shusterman did it. I thought he did so well with this. Neil Shusterman, I will say, is very heavy-handed with kind of what commentary he is trying to make, but I personally love it so much. I ended up giving this like a 4.25, 4.5 out of 5 star. I thought the premise was so fun and so unique, and I loved it. It was so good. Again, I loved where he went with this book. Highly recommend. Next up, me and Haley both listened to Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. This book that everyone's talking about. This is a very short book. It's only like 150 pages or something. It's a novella. The audiobook is literally like only a couple of hours long. This one was weird, but it wasn't as weird as I was expecting it to be, weirdly enough. I don't think I can say anything about this book. It's about two women who start talking online because of an apple peeler and their relationship. Yeah, that's all I can say. I gave it a 4 star. Alright, so next up I have The Need by Helen Phillips, and this book, this is such a weird book. I read it because I was actually recommended by one of you guys, a subscriber, because of the cover. And having like a deer person on it, and you guys know I'm terrified of deer. But this book, it started off so strong, like 5 stars for the first like 40%, and then it lost me for a while, but then the ending was awesome. So it's a very weird book for me. But basically this book follows a woman who she works as a like plant archaeologist. Like she doesn't dig up like bones and dinosaurs and stuff, she digs up plant fossils, and it flashes back and forth between her working earlier that day at her job and her at nighttime taking care of her children, and basically she is convinced that someone is in her house. And what happens because of that, it is so hard to explain what this book is about. It's very creepy, there's a lot of like paranoia, and then there's sci-fi. It's very, very strange. I don't know how else to explain that. But a lot of people have been saying that this book is not for everyone, and I do agree with that. I feel like it's definitely a very specific audience, because I know a lot of the reviews say that they got very annoyed about her talking about breastfeeding and like being a mom and stuff, and I will say that that is a very big part of this book, is her talking about the struggles of being a mom. And it's, I didn't think it was that bad, like I didn't get super annoyed with it, but apparently some people did. But yeah, I thought it was great. It did lose me for a little while, but I ended up giving it a 4 star. It is very weird, it's very bizarre, very up my alley. And then I read an arc of Summer Suns by Leah Mandelo, and this was sent to me by the publisher for review, by Tor.com sent me this. This one I was so excited about because I had just read These Violent Delights, which is right there. I read that earlier in the summer and I absolutely loved it. And this book just kind of gave me similar vibes. This is described as 1 part Sound and the Fury, 1 part Fast and Furious, and 1 part Secret History, which I feel like all dark academia is compared to Secret History now, which I hated the Secret History, I'm sorry. But that was the most interesting pitch I've ever heard, and I do 100% agree that it is each of those things. I mean, actually, I can't say The Sound and the Fury. I've never read that. But this follows a boy who, his best friend, who he has kind of a weird, very kind of codependent relationship with, he went to college and ended up committing suicide. So trigger warning for suicide. And then this main character boy, he goes to the same college a little while later, and he's trying to figure out what happened because he doesn't believe his friend committed suicide. So he kind of becomes friends with his friends, and like is trying to figure out what's going on. And there's lots of car racing and weird things. There's these things called the haunts, right? Or the spooks or something. Basically, he can see ghosts. He and this other boy could see ghosts. So it's kind of creepy in that sense. This book just ended up not really hitting for me. It was a very specific, like, just personal preference. I don't care about cars. I don't care about car racing. And I also really don't like reading about, like, alcohol and drug use in books. I don't really care about that in, like, real life. I just find it to be a overused and very annoying trope to be used in books. I just find it to be really annoying that it's like, oh, you can't trust them because they're high all the time. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of every thriller just having an unreliable narrator because the woman is drunk all the time. I'm just kind of sick of it in books and like movies and stuff of like, oh, we don't know what's happening because they're drunk. I just don't care. So that happened a lot in this. They were just always drunk or high and like getting into fights and like racing cars. Like I actually told my fiance that I think he would really, really love this because he also loves the Sound and the Fury and Fast and Furious. So I've actually put this on his TBR for him to check out. Cause yeah, I definitely think that there is a audience for this, and I think a lot of people will absolutely love this. I just wasn't one of them. But also this cover is probably one of my favorite covers I've ever seen. It's beautiful. But I personally gave this a 3, maybe like a 3.25 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read The Project by Courtney Summers. I'm so disappointed that I have not seen more people talking about this book. Everyone read Sadie, and then I feel like no one read this book. I absolutely loved this book. Just spoiler alert. Absolutely loved it. I give it 5 stars, or like 4.75 stars or something like that. This book, first off, I will just say, I don't think this is a YA book. You can tell just from how it's formatted. That's supposed to be marketed as YA. I would call this more NA. The characters in this book are in their 20s. And then there's also characters who are full, like, adults, like, you know, 30s, 40s. So a lot of adult things are also happening in this book. So I don't know why this is marketed as YA. Probably just because Sadie was. So, you know. This also has a lot of trigger warnings. I'm just throwing it out there. Read some trigger warnings before going into this book. This has a lot to do with cults. So basically, we follow 2 sisters. One sister was in a horrific car crash with their parents, who their parents died, and she survived, but she ended up like getting really, really scarred and like have a lot of deformities because of it. And then the other sister gets into a cult because she believes that the cult leader is the person who saved her sister or like brought her back to life. And then it's fast forwarded several years and they're adults and they've gone on their separate ways. They haven't spoken since that whole ordeal. And the sister who was in the car crash is trying to find her sister who was in the cult because she hasn't seen her in years. And this cult is getting like bigger and bigger and bigger. And it is so creepy and so addicting. I keep saying every time I was not reading this book, I wanted to be reading this book. I needed to know what happened. I thought the sister relationship in this book was so interesting. And I also loved the like psychological look at these 2 people who are kind of like, one's obviously on the outside of this cult, like looking in, and then a person who was very, very in this cult. I also for some reason have been around a lot of people who have been in religious cults in my life. So weird. I've not been in a cult. I'm not, but like I've been around a lot of people who have been in cults, and it's weirdly relatable. The one sister was weirdly relatable for me because I was just like, oh my god, it's like same. But I thought that this was so well done. The characters were amazing. The writing was amazing. The pacing was amazing. The twists, the plot twists, they were so good. I loved this so much. I'm so sad I haven't seen more people reading this. Highly recommend. Next up, I read Hummingbird Salamander by Jeff Vandermeer. This is his newest book, and this is kind of I guess you'd call it like a mystery thriller, following a woman who, she's at a cafe and she gets a note giving her like details about a storage unit to go to, and she just does it, and in there is a taxidermied hummingbird that is endangered or like extinct or something. If you can't tell from how I'm saying this, this book was so stupid. The mystery was so stupid and convoluted and boring. And the main character, oh god, I could not deal with being in her head anymore. I don't know why I think male writers have realized that we hate men writing women. So Jeff Vandermeer tried to like go as hardcore, like PC as possible with our main character, and it was so annoying. She didn't feel like a real person because she was like this really, really large woman. I think she might have been black too. I can't really remember, but I was just like, I don't care anymore. You are not a human being. You are just a, like, archetype to me. But, anyways, this was dumb. I hated it. Not hated it, I just thought it was so boring and stupid, and I didn't care at all. I gave this, like, a 2-star. Like, I'm beginning to think that Born was the fluke. I did like Annihilation, but not nearly as much as Born. And I've hated everything else I've read by Jeff Vandermeer. I'm about to give up. So, I think Born might have been the fluke. Born is, like, one of my favorite books of all time. But yeah, this was stupid. I don't recommend it. If you haven't read it yet, I don't recommend it. I'm sorry. And then I ended up reading 2 books with my students. If you guys didn't know, I am a special education teacher for 5th graders, and we read a couple of novels throughout the year, as well as, you know, picture books and stuff like that. We read Wonder. This was a reread for me by R.J. Palacio. I give it 4 stars. This book is very, very cute. I think that the kids really, really enjoyed it. I think it was very relevant, and yeah, everyone knows what Wonder is. And then one that we read together with just my kids, we read Just Ask, and this is a children's picture book, and I just wanted to shout this out. I don't usually like rate or talk about picture books because, again, I'm not a child, but I want to shout this out because I think that this was such an amazing book to do in a special education classroom, but I also think it would be amazing for general education. Basically, in this book, we go through a bunch of children who have disabilities, and they talk about their disabilities and how it affects them, but also how it makes them special, and how, like, just because they have a disability doesn't mean they don't have other interests and stuff like that. And my kids loved this. I asked them at the end, I was like, let's talk about who we related to most in this book. And it wasn't always obvious. It wasn't always, you know, the boy who has ADHD being like, I related to the boy who had ADHD. They related to really, really interesting characters, and I thought it was a very beautiful conversation that we had. It was very mature too. I was really impressed with them. They loved it. They asked if we could read it again. So this is one that I just want to shout out for any of my teachers or parents or grandparents that want to get their kids a book. This one was amazing. Again, it sparked the most beautiful conversation that I've had with my kids. My kids, we have some amazing conversations about disability, race, like being biracial, gender expression. It's been amazing, and this book was one of those sparks for those beautiful conversations. So I just wanted to shout this one out. 5 stars. Beautiful book. Next up, I read Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Reese, something like that. This was such an interesting one. This is also one that Nico picked up for me when he was on vacation without me, and I had read a ton of like academic criticism and like essays and stuff about this book, or talking about this book, because I read Jane Eyre for my master's degree, and so many referenced this book, and it was so fascinating reading it after I'd already read all of the like criticism around it, like not actual criticism, you guys know what I'm talking about, literary criticism surrounding this book. I ended up, it was so weird because I know how much this has affected like the idea of Jane Eyre, and like how this is almost like, it's not actually looked at as canon, but it's like referenced a lot in literary criticism of Jane Eyre as kind of a canon and like a look at a certain aspect of Jane Eyre. So it was so fascinating already knowing how much this has affected literary criticism. But I didn't love it. I thought that the beginning was honestly quite boring and dry, and I didn't really know where we were going with it. But then after we like meet Mr. Rochester, it got really, really good. The writing was beautiful in this. And again, I did love this author's take. I can't say what it's about because it's technically a spoiler. So I did like this. I love the idea behind it, but the actual writing just wasn't perfect for me. So I think I give this like 3.5, 3.75 out of 5 stars. And then the last book I have to talk about, oh my gosh, I picked this up kind of just like on a whim. I was like, you know, I have a couple of days left until spooky season starts, and I just want to read one more book because I have a lot of time at school to just like kind of sit down and relax and read. Like, you know, I don't have a lot of time, but I make my break kind of my reading time and like a time to like sit down and relax and kind of give myself a moment after children. I just picked this up on a whim. It was nowhere near the top of my TBR. I was honestly thinking of unhauling it. I am so happy I picked this up. This was a 5-star read. Just spoiler. And that was A Luminous Republic by Andres Barba. Guys, okay, listen. I'm blaming a little bit of this on you guys. I gotta recommend this so much. Like a year and a half ago. I picked it up about a year ago. I had no idea what this was about. If I had known what it was about, I think I would have picked it up earlier. I never read the back. I just was like, oh, magical realism. This is not magical realism. I was like, translated literature is translated from Spanish. I don't know if this author is South American or Mexican. It does not say. But this was translated from Spanish. But Guys, this book was amazing. I had no idea what it was even about. Why did no one tell me that this was like Lord of the Flies? Guys, Lord of the Flies is one of my favorite classics ever. This book is about a character, he's a man, who moves to this place called San Cristobal. And in this city, he's like recounting this story that happened years and years and years ago. In this city, there are these children who no one knows who they are, where they came from, and they live in like the jungle outside of the city. And they come into the city and they just like exist, wreak havoc, play, and they just like, they have their own language that no one knows where this language came from, and like they don't have a leader, which is so fascinating to me, because that's the whole point of Lord of the Flies, is like the idea of a leader and like listening to each other and the power dynamics. This was like no one was a leader and like everyone was a leader and they all like knew where they were at all times, and like, oh my god, it was so fascinating. And there were these 32 children and they were just trying to figure out who these children were, why they were here, where they came from. And then they start like actually wreaking havoc, like they actually like killed some people, and like they like have a couple of standoffs like at like grocery stores and banks and stuff. And then like other children from the town, like who were actually just part of the town, start like joining the children. It was fascinating. This is the kind of shit I love, is like psychological like analysis. It was fascinating. I can't even say any more about it. It was amazing. The writing in this, I don't even know if I showed. I have like quite a few books actually on this deck. I have like dog ears. I just haven't put my notes in. This is like under 200 pages and I have so many dog ears. I love this book. 5 stars. Go pick this up. Especially if you like Lord of the Flies or any of the conversations that come with Lord of the Flies. This book. Oh my god. It was incredible. I read it in 2 sittings. Amazing. 5 stars. Go pick this up. But wow, I've been filming for way too long. That was the 23 books I have read since July. I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and definitely tell me down in the comments below if you've read any of the books I talked about, what you guys thought about them. How about also tell me your favorite book that you've read since July, because I haven't gotten to talk to you guys since then about these kinds of books. So, yeah. Go talk to me in the comments below. I'm gonna stop filming. I've been filming for like 50 minutes. But anyways, I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I love you all, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye!